Hi everyone, it's Miss A, and I'm just going to go over shading. I'm going to start by going over really quickly this shading worksheet. It's not the best example, but I will show you tons of examples as I fill in the worksheet. So for this worksheet, you're going to need your blender, your eraser, and just your regular pencil. First thing on the worksheet, the most important, is value scale. Value scale shows a range from darkest values to lightest values when using shading techniques. Start with the darkest value and work your way to the lightest value. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I like to shade the whole thing, and I'll show you next on the next page. Down here, if we just flip to the bottom of the worksheet, we have tons of examples of shading. We are going to use this blending one for our still life project. When you're shading, you're going to identify the light source. Where the light hits your object is known as the highlight, and the darkest area will be known as your shadows. When the object blocks the light, the shadow is created. The shadow is created on opposite side of the light source. So the shadow will always be opposite the light source. Value and gradient. This is a big one because there are glass bottles in our still life. So value and gradient, we're going to want to add values and take values away. That's why I have my eraser, and that's why I have my blender. You want that ombre look, that ombre effect, so that's why we talk about gradient. Applying more layers of pencil to get a darker value, and lighter, either taking away or applying light pressure to have lighter values. Shade contours along the outside of an object. If an object has a straight edge, you can use the straight lines. If an object is rounded, you can use round ones. So there's tons of ways to shade. Like I said, we're going to focus on this blending one. Stippling is using small dots to create value. Parallel lines is hatching. Cross hatching, which you learn in intermediate art, is lines that intersect. And then scribbling is another option. I'm going to go ahead and flip to this shading worksheet. I'm just going to check and make sure you all can see it. Awesome. Okay, so we have the shading worksheet. At the top, I'm going to do the blend one so you can see. And I'm going to zoom us in a little bit just so we're really focused on this blend one. I'll let you guys experiment with those. I'm going to do, on this worksheet to get you started, I'm going to do blending, I'm going to do the box, and I'm going to create my value scale, okay? Okay, so for blending, I'm going to shade this. My light source is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a line with my pencil because my light source is here. So I should be kind of shading wherever. Okay, so there's my light source, right? This is going to be lighter, this is going to be darker. So in these parts here, I'm going to start by applying a value. And I'm going in one direction. It does help. And I'm going to get lighter as I go towards that light source. Same thing on the bottom. And it's okay to go out of the lines because you can erase. So now we have like one nice value down. I'm going to take my blender. Okay, so to use your blender, you use the tip part of it, and I just put my finger on the top. You can also use your finger too. I sometimes like to use my finger to smudge. I'm just going to add a little value to the whole thing. I'm going to take my eraser because I know this is my highlight here. I'm going to start erasing that lighter value. And then I need darker values over here. So I'm going to make sure I press a little bit harder with my pencil and add those darker values. And I'm going to blend them. So that's blending. Before I go to this box, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip right down to the value scale. I know the value scale is at the bottom of this worksheet because we're practicing, but it does help you for the next page too that I'm going to do. So nice and blended. So we're going to use this technique in our projects. Like I said, you guys are going to go through all of these and complete them. I'm only going to do the blending one. I'm just going to erase around. the blending one, the box, and the value scale. You guys will complete the rest of the worksheet. So create your own value scale. I'm going to go from my darkest to my lightest. The first step, what I like to do, I'm just going to make sure we can see. Okay, I just got to zoom you out a little bit. Okay, cool. All right. First step I like to do is I'm going to get 5 values in this little square. So I'm going to go 5, just to keep myself in track. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, 1 being my lightest, 5 being my darkest. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to press harder in this box because I want this to be my darkest value and I want to be able to get different values between it. You can fill in the whole thing. I'm going to put little boxes inside this box. Not going to fill in the whole thing. So we have 5. You can blend if you want. I find blending the darker values does get a little bit harder. So I'm just going to blend to cover the little spots. Alright, so now I'm going to go to 4. 4 isn't going to be as much pressure, but it's still going to be a darker value. I should still see a difference between these two. Three, it's going to be lighter than that one. I sometimes have to go back and forth just to add values because I see that they're not. Okay, good. Darkest, darker, dark. And then this one's going to be a little bit lighter. And this one's going to be my lightest. Okay, so there is a progression. This way I can get a gradient. Now I'm going to flip up to this box. I just have to make sure we can see. Awesome. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to go up to this box. Now, my light source is coming from the right side. So I'm just going to put some lines here so I know that there's a light source. My shadow is the opposite of the light source. So my shadow is going to be down here. So if we're looking at our value scale, 5, I'm going to make my shadows on this side of the box darker. My darkest value going on the bottom. My 4 value going on this box. My 3 up here. My 2. And then my 1. So my darkest value, I'm going to blend. So I'm using my blender, my 2 fingers here and this finger, and I'm going to start to blend. You can use just your finger. It's not going to give you the same effect though. Same thing. Shade this side. Okay, I think this value is a little too light, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another layer of pencil. And add another layer on this darker side. And I would just keep adding pencil until I feel like I have something that I like. So that's definitely darker. And you have to remember your blender holds a little bit of lead, so you can, if I take this to white, it's going to show values there, so just keep that in mind. gonna just keep blending until I feel like I have a nice value. And then what I like to do is I like to take my eraser and I do erase these parts here, just because that is the lightest value, and then I just blend back over and use those little eraser marks, little eraser pieces with my finger. I just move them around. They add. So that is shading the blending way, and this is what we're going to use for our project. I have my value scale. Let me just zoom you guys out so you can see. Okay. And I have my value scale. The next page is the same thing as the box, but using a value scale and to shade the spear, and your name and your class period go on the bottom. And then these are all submitted to Google Classroom by next Monday. October 12th, Monday, October 12th. These are submitted to Google Classroom. In class, we're going to start shading. And my remotes, you guys are shading at your own when you feel like you're ready.